But this is really one of my favorite subjects. As many of you may know, I'm a historian, and my books have 500 to 1,200 footnotes. So I ground everything I say in history. But I'm also a clairvoyant and a mystic and a time walker. And the reason that I'm profoundly interested in this is because not only have I been a mystery school student and teacher and initiate in many, many past lives, like perhaps a lot of you have, but I feel like that if we can study history, we discover how we've made mistakes in the past, and then we can choose not to make them again. And I think that you'll see in this presentation how these cycles of time repeat and repeat over and over, and how we're finally coming out of a lot of the darkness into the light in this day and age. And you all are part of that evolution. You're part of that transformation, and understanding the history and where we are and where we've been really gives us the tools to be able to intelligently talk about how to make the changes that we want in our world. So welcome to the rebirth of the sacred feminine and the divine masculine to heal the world. So I am the author of 4 published books and about 13 online books, as well as a number of courses, not only through Neil's Portal to Ascension. You can Google me. I've probably done about 12 or 15 classes on everything from UFOs and the great cycles of time to Mary Magdalene and so forth, but also through a wonderful company called sacredstories.com, where I've done about 6 major courses that are in modules. But my very first book was Dialogues with the Angels, that starts off with how I began to be able to see the fairies and the divas and the elementals in the forest when I was a child at the age of 8, how the forest angel began to teach me about the great chain of being, or the multidimensional realities that are behind the physical world. And these are realities, of course, that as souls we know about, but as humans, we're kind of in amnesia. We've forgotten about largely. But through the processes of the great mystery schools and through the processes of soul travel, we can learn to access, while we're still living in the physical body, we can learn to shift our consciousness and access these higher worlds. And at the end of the day, this is really what the great spiritual mysteries are about, is the direct experience that we can have as souls that remind us that we are immortal beings, that we're having a physical, let us say, journey or chapter of our spiritual evolution here on the planet in this lifetime, and in each successive lifetime we have an opportunity to advance further in our wisdom and in our understanding. And so this is, of course, part of what's at the heart of the great spiritual mysteries, is that self-realization and God realization that transforms everything in our lives. My second book was about the lost years and secret teachings of Jesus, something I never thought in a million years I would be writing about, because my family is very traditional Christian, and I was raised Episcopalian, and my older sister is married to a preacher and a fundamentalist, and in the name of Jesus, there's been so much pain and suffering, not only in the world but also in my own family. But I wound up, because of this, having access to secret documents within the Vatican and other many secret texts. So this book is a tour de force of the great spiritual mystery schools and where he went, who he studied with, which include the Essenes, of course, in Galilee, the Therapeutae and the Egyptian initiates in Egypt, the Druids in England, India, the Buddhist, as well as the Brahmins, the Persian Magi, and then later 7 years in the mystery schools of ancient Egypt. So this is a very profound book, and as most of you know who know these books, I have about 150 illustrations. I'm a big one for images. This book is really this book picks up where this book ends off. So I usually tell people to read Dialogues with the Angels first, and then The Return of the Divine Sophia. And this was about my own journey starting around 27, about the rediscovery of a hidden history in the world that most of us know nothing about. And this is a history where God was thought of as the Divine Mother, and then later the Divine Mother and Father. And we'll be talking about some of this today. When this model was held theologically or cosmologically, men and women ruled together in equality. Yep, inequality, shocking but true, in a partnership model. And there was no war on the planet. Can you imagine such a thing? No war on the planet? I mean, we've grown up with war for thousands of years, so we don't really know any different. But this was an earlier time that archaeologists have discovered. And so this is really about me being taken into these deep initiatic mystery schools and taught, and then me going and finding the research that supported it, because of course this is not what I was taught in Sunday school. And then the angelic origins of the soul. As many of you know, I'm a clairvoyant. I've read for over 6,000 people all around the world. And, where initially I was just going back 3,000 or 4,000 years, 5,000, 10,000, I found myself going back to Atlantis and then Lemuria. And then I found myself being able to track the soul's history going off the planet. And eventually I began to ask the even deeper questions about who is this soul really? How are we aligned with the angelic orders? And what is this whole mysterious thing we're calling reincarnation and life and coming down here and living and dying and suffering and all the crazy things we humans have to do in order to become self-realized? So this is very much a book about these discoveries and really what the structure is, what the course curriculum is, if you will, for each and every one of us and what we're down here to learn. This is the Phoenix Fire Mystery School, and again, you can just find this simply through my website, TriciaMcCannon.com. These are some of the 12 online classes. Each of these, I think the shortest is 100 pages, the longest is 130. They average, 180. They average about 130, and they've got all sorts of teachings and processes, and probably about 200 illustrations in each one. So they're really beautiful. Again, you can just find them online. Okay, let's take a breath here. So let us begin by talking about discovering the sacred masculine and the divine feminine to heal the world, and how important this balance actually is, and where we are and where we have been. So to begin with, just to take the higher perspective, most of us can observe that we live in a dualistic universe. We see evidence of this everywhere. So let's look at some of the examples. Light and dark, the sun and the moon, solar and lunar energies, day and night, youth and old age. And I love this image. This is an image of the tree of life. Here we see the soul as a young child being led by its guardian angel through the gateway into the world as a baby. And of course, this is the day energy and the summer and the spring with all the richness and fecundity. And over here is the night energy. And here is the death figure with the scythe and old age. And if you look carefully here, you can sort of see the old man's profile here. And you can see another nose with a profile here. It's really very beautiful. And if you look carefully on this side, here's an eye and a nose. This is the youth. The girl, there's her windswept hair. It's really exquisite. So we see the sun here, the moon here, beautifully portraying this combination of yin-yang energies, all contained within the Tree of Life, another one of my favorite subjects. We certainly see this playing out in the masculine and the feminine energies all around us, the positive and the negative polarities, as they like to be called. Now, of course, the patriarchy's made it so the male's positive and the female's negative, but depending on the season or the civilization or the century you live in, that can certainly change. But certainly when we look at, let us say, Chinese culture, they did it in, I think, a little more balanced way. Rather than saying negative and positive, they said yin and yang. What is the yin and yang? It's, of course, the dance between the contractive energies and the expansive energies. The energies that go out to create the world, and the energies, let us say, of form, that create more structure and consequently contraction. And the yin yang beautifully describes this flow of energy, which of course really is very much like the Shekinah or the sine wave here. And you see that hidden within, normally the way it's shown is that there's a sun energy hidden within the night, and there is a moon energy hidden within the day. In other words, even in cycles that are primarily on the positive polarity, you have the negative hidden within it, and vice versa, so that they interpenetrate one another. You can really kind of see that at a planetary level, where we have a sun or a molten core, however you want to look at it, inside of our planet. So we can think of that as the masculine. The earth is the feminine. And then we have the sun outside of us, which is the masculine. And the moon, of course, is thought of as the reflective energy or receptive energy of the feminine. Literally, you can watch it all around us, how it plays out. Now, this yin-yang flow energy is beautifully expressed in the out-breath and the in-breath of the divine. And we can think of this as the Big Bang. Everything comes into creation. The ancients call this the day of God. And then for trillions of years, all the universes are created, and the souls go out and populate the universe, and we begin to have experiences. And then there's a point where we begin to surf back in towards the center of creation. Now, of course, we know at a physical, biological level that the universe is still in its expanding phase. There will come a point when it will turn and it will begin to contract. And this day and night of God, as the ancients spoke of it, repeats again and again. But we as souls have come out from this center point. We've come down to the various dimensions, and we're out here on the rim having our physical third dimensional experiences. Within the mystery schools, the point of the mystery schools is to awaken while we're here. And if we do so, we can actually enlighten matter. We can become vessels for this divine God energy as we awaken it within us. Or we can choose to surf back and move back out of the third dimension into the fourth, into the fifth, into the sixth, into the higher worlds, and we can serve at a higher level. As masters, as angels, as adepts, as initiates, as avatars, not only serving this world, but perhaps even serving other worlds. So we can observe this yin-yang polarity also in the duality of our mind, the struggle between our logical mind and our intuitive mind. The dichotomy between what our heart wants to do and what our head tells us to do. Maybe your heart wants to, go on a vacation, but your head tells you, no, you have to pay bills. You need to stay at home and keep your nose to the grindstone. Maybe your heart wants to fall madly in love with somebody, but your head says, absolutely not. I'm going to be moving next month. It's not a convenient time to fall in love. Maybe your heart or your salivary glands say, I want that chocolate double fudge brownie, and your head says, that's not on my diet plan. Okay, so there's many times there's this struggle that we humans are dealing with between our heart and our head, and it's really the same yin-yang conversation. If you think of science tells us that there's chaos and then there's order, and then order goes all to hell and becomes chaos again, and then it rearranges itself into a new order. And this is sort of the same balance between, something becoming and then something that becomes. Between our regimented planning self, I've got the plan, I know exactly what I'm going to do, and our creative spontaneity. Sometimes, no matter how well we plan, something greater comes along. Something happens, something that we didn't expect. As they say, the best laid plans of mice and men. Pay attention to the way spirit intervenes. So it's that, again, that dance between the two. The dance between our discipline and our desires. And you can see this perfectly where he's literally looking at the donut and he's looking at the fruit. How many of us have actually been there? It's like, okay, I know I should just have grapes for dessert, but I'm going to have a brownie instead. This is because we have two minds, There's actually two parts of us living inside of one body.